This is KVCI continues with the information that is spewed out into the ears, minds, and souls of people who just don't understand. But Boston G.B.R. wants you to have, as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story. So listen please.
They cannot get copies of a ballot.
Okay, now how you doing?
Very important subject you're talking about this morning.
It is.
This didn't start in equipment, and it didn't start in the last election. I would remind you that in 2008, I believe it was, ever hear of a fellow named Al Franken?
Oh, Al Franken. Yeah, I think I know Al Franken up in Minnesota.
Lost on election night. The next day, you got votes showing up in the trunks of cars. And when the court fights were all done and it was all over, those votes were allowed to count. Now, where am I going? The other day, you had a police officer on your show. The next time you have a police officer on your show, have him to explain to you the laws of evidence, or the rules of evidence, and the concept of the chain of evidence. In the law enforcement world, when you collect evidence at a crime scene, you have to account for the whereabouts and the people who had access to that evidence from the time you collect it to the time it's presented to the judge and jury. If the attorney can show any break in that chain, any contradictions, anything doesn't add up, the cop's fault, the offender's fault, nobody's fault, if that chain of evidence has not...
All that sounds so official and correct, but you don't get absentee ballots without somebody doing some type of accountability. As I said earlier, this is mine because I put in an application to vote by absentee ballot. And I was sent, and I received this in the mail today. And I was there because I wanted to know the process. And there are logs that have to be kept up. There are review of the information on the application, not the registration form, the register to vote. And y'all know, it seemed like, if I didn't know what I was talking about, I wouldn't be on radio. I wouldn't even be doing this. I've done my homework, and I want you to be informed. I want you to know that people just do what they want to do, and they want you to believe what they say. But anyway, let's go forward.
You know what happens to that evidence?
Thrown out.
It's thrown out.
That's bullshit.
Same integrity should be kept in our voting process. You have to call
exactly
earlier.
what they want to do.
We're not just
When
one, but several of our black citizens down there in Quitman who went to vote were told they had already voted by absentee ballot. And they complained.
Now, if those people went to vote, and if somebody had already voted for them, then that's a problem. And to tell you the truth, I don't care whether they're black or white, blue, brown, or whatever. But if you break the law, there's a law been broken. And I hope to God that we know the difference between right and wrong.
Ballots that they did not cast. If that is true, then there's a serious problem in that election process down there. It needs to be investigated. And when the evidence overwhelmingly shows that the people who are holding that office were the beneficiaries of that activity, they need to be put on hold because nothing that they do down there should be allowed to be binding until it is established beyond a reasonable doubt that that person was righteously and validly elected to that office.
And that's why we have these suspensions.
That's why we have the suspension. And the rules of evidence, what's on the line? An individual's life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness.
Now, if the Quitman 10 or 3 that was elected to the board had lost, I repeat, if they had lost the election, would there have been an investigation? Being of average intelligence, retired from the United States Armed Forces, I read in the local newspapers and on TV that the district attorney, David Miller, assistant DA, Brad Shealy, the reasons given for the investigation, the baseline of it all was because there was a spike. Because there was a spike in absentee ballots that were submitted by anybody that want to file by absentee ballot, because that's the law. Now, if that's the case, and if I went out and worked like hell and had people to register to vote, then followed up and they wanted to vote by application, by absentee ballot, and if I wanted or they wanted a paper trail, then hell, everybody in Brooks County just may have filled out, like I did for this election, an application for official absentee ballot. And that's what I did. And I got the ballot today. Now, if everybody in Valdosta and Lowndes County did that, then guess what? Then there would be a spike in what? Absentee ballot submissions. And I guess the district attorney would ask a question. They would compare Lowndes County and Valdosta to another county. But if they don't go out, register people to vote, which is our right, and then do it by absentee ballot, then we know why there's a spike in absentee ballot submission. That's very simple. I mean, let's go forward.
To be absolutely sure, for someone to commit a crime and get away with it is a miscarriage of justice. For someone to not commit a crime but do prison time or worse for it, that is a travesty of justice. And the same things are at stake when we elect these government officials. Our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is in jeopardy when someone can go in there and corrupt our process, take it before a judge, and have the judge rule in their favor, like votes in the trunks of cars that have no valid chain of evidence, so to speak.
Votes in the trunks of cars. Did you hear that? You hear that? Why would somebody go out and make a statement in the trunks of, without any tracking or accountability? Where did, let's go forward.
Those votes are even valid. That is a problem. Sure. And it's not just in Quitman. This is becoming a nationwide problem, and it always seems to be one particular party that's involved in these things where votes turn up in the trunks of cars.
Yeah, you're right. It didn't start here. It's not going to stop here, unfortunately. But that's obviously what we're concentrating on now. And, you know, I don't think it's too outlandish to simply say, let's wait and see what comes out of the trial. That's my whole thing on all of this. I'm not saying these folks are guilty by any stretch of the imagination.
Right, but obviously something exists there. Somebody's not just being a sore loser here. There appears to me to be evidence to believe that something went on down there.
Enough to certainly investigate it.
Same thing with this race, this past election between Mike Cowan and Sanfort Bishop. You know, there were some things that raised eyebrows in that election too. And I actually